Now let's look at some font changes. I have 4 here. The 2 on top are made by Zeynep Bafralı, the one in the middle is made by Yasemin, and then the one on the bottom is made by Aya. And all of them, I think, need font changes. So I'm actually going to start with Yasemin's because that's an easy one. Now, she has this really wonderful crow icon here, and when you look at the feet and the hands and just the way it's generally constructed, I think that these fonts don't really go with that. What she probably needs is a slab serif or something like that, or a monospace to make this really work. So we have a font called Josephine. Let me see, do I have it activated here? I should, yes, Josephine Slab. I think that one would work very well. It's got that, and it's also got thins and lights and thicks and heavies. I'm not sure how heavy it goes. Let me just check that. It has a bold, it has that may not be enough. We may need to have something that is even bolder, but for some of this, like this here and this here, I think Josephine Slab can be used. So let's start with that. Josephine Sans Slab Thin. This is so big that I think she can get away with a thin. And then I would also, of course, put a guide here. Whoopsie, like right here, and then align that exactly to there. The restaurant and bar, I think, can also become Josephine, but maybe more like a regular. So you see, now these slab serifs here, these here, are imitating what's on this icon very, very nicely. So now we need to take a look at this. I'm going to try and keep that Josephine as well. So there's the bold here, but no, I kind of anticipated that. I don't think that the bold is actually going to work, because Josephine is a kind of font that has pretty high ascenders. So the X height is actually quite low in relationship to the top line where the uppercase letters are. So we get a lot of empty space here, which I'm not sure is working just as it should. So let's go and look at some other slab serifs that we might be able to use. We have Lubalin graph, which might work. Now let me just write Karga, and yeah, see, the space here is much less. So we have demi, we have do we have bold? No, we don't, but we have demi. So hold on, it says oblique, but this is not oblique, is it? It's regular. Okay, let's see. There you go. Now this can probably become a little bit shorter. Maybe we can just align it exactly to Umumi, and then move the restaurant and bar up to here, but align it to here. And then also take Umumi and align that to here, which would mean that Karga would need to get, let me just put another guide here to make sure that I'm doing this oh, hold on, I'm almost right. well, I want to align the slab to the slab, so I need to come in just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. Bring the restaurant and bar down a bit. And this is what we have now. So what did we have before? I think, hold on, yeah, we had this, and now we have this. And as you can see now, the icon and the typography are working much better together, but I just spotted a little problem here. We have a kerning problem, so we might as well fix that as well. Move this in a bit, move this out a bit. This seems to be okay. With the umumi, do we have a kerning problem here? No, we don't. So what happened to our alignment? Karga needs to now become even a little bit smaller. So that is Yasemin taken care of. Now let's look at Aya. So Aya did what I actually told people to be very careful of doing. If you remember back to an earlier tutorial I made, I talked about rhythm and how these kinds of fonts, which are like school fonts or friendly fonts, usually have very, very bad rhythm because their ascender lines, their vertical lines usually don't create a good rhythm, and sure enough we have that problem here as well. And also she has this very clear cut, very clean tree here with which this school type, handwriting type thing isn't going very well anyway. I actually imported this from Illustrator, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this and add a new font. So what she wants is, as far as I can see, she wants a condensed font, a really condensed font, which is fine. She can have that. So let me just write Natura here. So it's obviously doing it in the last one, which was Lubalin graph. We'll change that in a minute. Now, there are a number of, here, let me activate this as well actually while I'm here. There are a number of really condensed fonts that are also very nice. So for example, we can start with this one that I just activated, which was Pogo Display, right? So, Pogo Display. Now let's increase the size of this so that it's roughly the same size as hers in terms of, well, I'm going to sort of go in the middle. I'm not going to make it quite as high as hers, but I'm going to make it a little bit wider. Now let's close this. And let me put a guide right in the middle of this tree. And then if I transform this, because I didn't make a box, I just clicked and started a text, I can do that. So that would be version 1. Now let's see, what else do we have? We have neon extra condensed. Yeah, why not? So I'm just going to duplicate this and try neon extra condensed. So let's open hers again. Go as high as she did this time. And then what I can also do with this one is I can play around with the kerning This can definitely use some kerning, like 200, why not? Let's see. If I center it to where it tells me to center it, then it won't be exactly centered, so I'm going to have to eyeball this. So that would be version 2. Now let's try another one. MD tall. Now this, I think, needs to become a bit smaller. So let me go back to here. I think this is actually my favorite, because the boldness here complements the icon. This I can live without, but this is quite nice as well. So it would be a toss-up between either this one or that one. I'm not sure. However, what I think we definitely do need is a separator here, because you see the edge of the tree is kind of irregular, and I think if we have a baseline here, that will help. So let me just fix that, and let's go. And I'm going to make this wider. But again, I think I made this too thick. I think it needs to be thinner. And so if I take this and the line and the tree and align them from the middle, now it's perfect. And then take these and bring them down so that the space between here and here is almost equal. Now let's quickly check and see if the kerning is working okay, which it seems to be. I don't see any major problems. I like the way that this is cut off here, because it kind of complements the cut off thing with the trees, so I think that is a nice kind of continuation with that. So that is Aya taken care of. So, last but not least, Zeynep. Now, she had 2 versions of this one up here, with 2 different bowls. This is kind of like a nice ethnic looking or tribal looking bowl. She had another version as well, but this one I think is working much better. However, what I think definitely needs to happen here, and let me just close this so that we can concentrate on this, is that we need to establish more of a contrast between this bowl here and the rest of the typography, and also the typography is kind of boring, so we could look for something that is more interesting. Now let's see. So we have this here, and what she actually did is she did something quite crazy. She added a white rectangle here to close off the U, when all she needed to do was to actually just move this over. So why didn't she do that? I have absolutely no idea, but that's what she did. So now this here, for example, this Poiré 1 might work really well. So let's try it right away. Except that I think we need to go back one. Yeah. So this here is providing a pretty good contrast to what we have here. Except that I think that what would also be good would be to actually make this even a little bit bigger so that it kind of pops out, because that's not just a U, but it's also the icon. This is the way that it was in her file. The way that I brought it here is that this is a bitmap. Was a bitmap, it needs to be a vector, especially with something like this. She needs to be careful with that. But so now let's look at some other alternatives. Is there anything else that we could use, like this camellia, for example? Let's try that one. But here I think we need to open one up and then decrease the kerning. So if I go down to 10, that should do it. And then also what I would need to do is I would need to press the Alt key and come in a bit and then move this over. Actually, I think I've gone a bit too far. And then maybe make this a little bit smaller. See, every time I'm playing with this, because it's only a bitmap, I'm ruining the quality of it. When it's a vector, I can scale it up and scale it down to my heart's content, but when it's a bitmap, then I can't really do that. I'm just doing it now. But if we zoom in here, you will see that the quality is getting lost very, very quickly because I'm playing around with it. So let's see, do we have anything else here that might be interesting among the activated fonts that we have? We have this, but this I wouldn't use because the R here is very fancy and she already has that U with the icon, so that would be an overkill. I'm not sure if a slab serif would work in this case. Let's look at whether there's anything interesting here. This might work. Ascalt. Let's see. Ooh, this needs to get quite a bit bigger. Interesting font here. I think I already mentioned this at some point, but fonts do not always have to be the same size when they are the same point size. They can vary very greatly from font to font. The fonts, the actual size of the type can vary a lot from font to font. This actually is looking very nice, except I think we need to increase the kerning even more. So let's, well, 200 is an overkill obviously, but 100 might work. Then move it up a bit. And now I think this would probably need to get a bit smaller now. And that is probably what I would go with. So now here's Zeynep's other one, which I'm actually going to use for another tutorial altogether, which has to do with this leaf here, which is bringing out of that character, and other people have made the same mistake as well, and I'm going to do a tutorial that covers all of them. So right now I'm not concentrated on that, but I want to look at this font, because the problem with this one is that, see, this font has kind of like a curvature. It's a font that looks a little bit like Optima or Americana, which are kind of fonts that are not really sans serifs and they're not really serifs. They used to be very fashionable in the 1960s and 70s, and some of them are very, very nice. And this one, as a matter of fact, isn't a bad one either. However, the big problem is this bar here, the dash, is so different in look from this curved character of this font that creates a big problem. And that's really the only thing that I wanted to show here. So what she would need to do if she insists on using this font is she would need to put something else here. Either draw one herself, like something that, or maybe, I don't know, I mean, it's a crazy idea, but let's try it. If I put an, hold on, if I put an I here, does this have Turkish characters? Can I actually get, oh, great, it does. So, if I were to rotate this and make it smaller and then make a dash out of that, now that might work, because then we have that same thing. So let me just go back in the history to show you what I mean. So do you see how unrelated to all of these, to the flow of this font, to the structure of the font, this dash is? It's a mistake, and it's a mistake that the font designer actually made. They should have been more careful. But one way of fixing that could possibly be this, except that of course as a dash this is way too wide, so she might need to kind of narrow it down a bit, all of which actually requires some knowledge of font design, which I don't really have that much. Now there are kerning issues here as well, so this would need to come in, well, not quite so much, but this would need to come in a bit. The R and the A are problematic in most cases. T and the U needs to come in a bit, the A and the T needs to come in a bit. Now this looks better. So this could conceivably work. So, but she has a very nice logotype here, so this is the one that I would go with. But I just wanted to show this so that all of you are aware of these kinds of things. If there's an inconsistency between the glyphs of a font, which in this case there very clearly is, the dash of this font is inconsistent with everything else, then you need to be aware of that. You need to pay attention to that and either not use that font or try to figure out a solution.